Korea is located south below China and east of Japan, North Korea being directly connected to China and South Korea further to the south. Japan was still in control of Korea after World War II. Kim II Sung controlled North Korea during the war, and Syngman Rhee controlled South Korea. China helped North Korea while the U.S. helped South Korea. The United States got involved by supporting South Korea with materials and funds after North Korea's surprise attack. They did this because they were afraid that communism would spread to the world, which poses a threat to the free world and its security. The war in Korea started 5 years after the end of World War II, in June of 1950, when North Korea invaded South Korea and came to the end in July of 1953. The policy of containment states that the U.S. would provide military, political, and economic aid to democratic countries under the threat of communism. South Korea is a democratic state that was threatened by communists. The Korean War was a proxy war to the Cold War. The U.S. helped South Korea and China helped North Korea.
On September 15, 1950, United Nations troops surprise attacked in Incan Korea's west coast. North Korean troops were trapped and surrendered. The rest fled. November 1950, China sent 300,000 troops to help North Korea. The Chinese outnumbered United Nations troops by 10 to 1. By January 1951, all UN and South Korean troops had been pushed out of North Korea. For 2 years, neither side was able to make important advances. During the U.S.'s defense and the Korean War, there were many widespread reports that blamed the initial setbacks in Korea on ill-equipped and inadequately trained American military forces. When the invasion began, Truman called for the Navy to blockade North Korea, but this could only be done on paper, because the U.S. Navy no longer had enough ships to carry out his request. There was only a shortage of spare parts and qualified people to repair machines. This resulted in a Navy helicopter's rotor blades having to be repaired with masking tape in the absence of spares. The U.S. military was unprepared for this war. Multiple massacres on citizens took place throughout the Korean War, starting just days after the invasion with the Seoul National University Hospital massacre, as well as the Bodu League massacre that was of suspected leftist sympathizers and their families that totaled more than 100,000 deaths. About 3 million people were killed in the Korean War. It is estimated that more than half the deaths were civilians. Douglas MacArthur, an American military leader, wrote secretly to newspaper, magazine publishers, and Republican leaders. MacArthur's superiors said he had no authority doing these things, but he continued anyway. On April 11, 1951, Truman fired MacArthur. Americans were outraged. A poll shows that 69% were on MacArthur's side. Over time, people agreed that Truman did the right thing. The war cost 54,000 American lives and $67 billion in expenditures. The high cost was one of the factors that led to Americans rejecting the Democratic Party in 1951 and to elect a Republican administrator under World War II hero Dwight D. Eisenhower. The U.S. started to station troops along the border between North and South Korea. Increased anti-communism sentiment also had repercussions at home, as the government started hunting Americans who might be blamed for the communist gains.
On June 23, 1951, the Soviet Union suggested a ceasefire. Truce talks began in July 1951. In July 1953, the two sides met in the town of Panmunjom and signed an end to the war. North Korea invaders were pushed back. Communism had been contained without nuclear weapons, but Korea still had two sides. The Korean War helped America become a world power because America showed that they're willing to help democratic countries that are being threatened by communism. They also showed North Korea and China that they can fight back and protect South Korea from danger. When the U.S. helped South Korea looked up to the U.S. at the time, making the U.S. their saviors. This, overall, would make South Korea in debt to the U.S.